get people. Maybe it'd take a minute to go through everybody. One person. We'll see if they censor us. Hey, everyone. Whoever's coming in, we're just waiting to see who hops on. So looking forward to getting into all of this. Tell us where you're coming from, where you're at. And if you're in Texas, because we're talking about Texas, I want you to get pissed. Michigan from Tyler. Give it like what? One more minute? Knock your head. Ohio, Florida. Stacy, you're still in Georgia. Hi, Stacy. Costa Rica. I'm coming. Can I come? Heidi, of course, from Minnesota. Lisa May, please tell me when I can get on a plane to come see you and stay with you in Costa Rica. It's one of my favorite places. Not the communism. Illinois, California. I'm sorry, Tim, that you live in California. And I'm from California, so I can say that. Mid-Missouri. Hey, everyone. So I'm going to get into it and let people just, they can kind of watch the playback. But Canada, there's people from other countries. I love it. Anyway, I want to introduce, I've done shows with him before. It's no surprise that he's a good friend of mine, him and his wife. And so Max McGuire, I've done shows with him before, and I thought he'd be a good person to kind of do this show with because he's written a book on gun laws and different things. And so he's like the perfect person. So Max McGuire, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good to see you again.
You too. Any crazy updates before we get into this crazy story?
I'm sick, so I'm getting over a cough. And by getting over a cough, I mean I have full blown bronchitis. So if I
Yeah.
if I mute myself, I apologize. It's because I'm losing a lung, but I think we'll be good. No, just trying to keep my head down, not get subpoenaed anymore, not get brought in to be deposed. And anytime you can avoid getting dragged into
The
BS
court.
legal fights, it's always good.
Yeah,
Um,
especially with a BS human like I'll say
well,
it, Joe Oltman.
I, I
I'm
just,
sorry. Let him troll me here
I,
now.
I just, I am very much enjoying what I do now, and I'm very much enjoying not being part of that drama and everything. We were
Yeah.
talking before. He's being sued by a transgender reporter for defamation, but that transgender reporter was also named the spokesperson of Ukraine. It's just it's crazy.
And guys, just so you
It's
know, this
crazy.
is kind of a funny story because we won't give the whole detail of it because I think Max and I should do like a really funny show on it. But this transgender person who is the spokesperson for Ukraine
Now suspended. Now suspended
now suspended
because
because
in
they're
her
gonna.
one
Yeah, go
day
ahead.
she called for taking down any journalist who's against Ukraine, like rounding them all
Any
up and
American
yeah,
journalist
and
or
American journalists
podcaster.
too, yeah. And Ukraine's like, whoa, let's take a step back. So he's suspended. Keep going though.
Yeah. Anyway, so this lawyer that's representing them, we were like talking for a hot second, like a very hot second. And it's like such a small world because here Max and I are friends. And like I know Joe because I was in Colorado. Obviously, Max was in Colorado. I can't stand Joe Oltman. I think he's such a tool. And so it's just a small world that now Max has gotten dragged into Joe's court crap, right? Because he used to be on the podcast, which I'm not going to give it any name because I'm not going to like advertise it. But anyway, he was on
Yeah.
a podcast and basically set it up, ran it, everything, and got dragged into court. And so it's really comical that this BS attorney who, listen, you can get one over on, you can't really get one over on me. And some of the things that he did were like really inappropriate. And so, there have been times with Max and his wife, Annie, where I'm like, this guy is like crazy. I mean, so much so we hadn't never met. And he's like telling me he loves me. I'm like, listen, you don't love me. You don't know me. So anyway, that was just a small kind of funny.
No, it's just like I just think it's crazy. There's 7.9 billion people on this rock floating through space, and like somehow my life is interconnected with a transgender reporter who was briefly the spokesperson of Ukraine, and someone you were like flirting with briefly online.
That sounds so weird, flirting with.
But you had like you were testing things out. No, it never went anywhere. But it's just so weird. It's just so weird.
That's funny. Well, we got to do a totally funny show on this later because it's actually really comical, and we want to kind of get into like the really funny parts of it. But the real reason for this show, if you're tuning in, is, they really are coming for our guns, our Second Amendment rights. And so I'm just going to kind of give you a breakdown, and then Max and I are going to get into it and show you some videos. But we have a mutual friend, and she's a really good human. I mean, she just is. And
a patriot.
Here's what happened. And if anyone knows me, I am an advocate for any child minor. You abuse a child, I'm getting crazy, especially if you're someone that I love or care about or anything like that. Well, Shirley, and we're not going to say the minor's name because it's a minor. So I'm just going to refer to her as child one to protect her, because minors need to be protected. But Shirley was in the news, and that's why I'm saying her name. But Shirley, first of all, this child was walking in her neighborhood, and this woman drove by, threw a cigarette at this child.
Woman's name is Margot.
The woman's name is Margot. Do you know her last name? I don't remember.
I don't want to defame her, so let me look it up.
Okay. Her name is Margot, and then we'll get the rest of it. So her name is Margot, and they drove by this child. And when I say a child, she's a teenager, or,
Margot Vasquez.
Margot Vasquez. So the child's what, 11, 12, maybe? And
middle school.
Drove by her, threw the cigarette out, and said at the child, and said, "I hope you enjoy this cigarette." Like, first of all, anyone that's throwing a cigarette at the child is just fucking crazy. I'm sorry, pardon my language, but you're crazy.
And it's not just that. We've talked about this when we were like preparing to do this show, that cigarettes are like a go-to weapon that abusers will use on children. And that when you look through like the psychology research of like looking like how do people try and exert force over kids, you see time and time again that they choose cigarettes because it's frightening, it burns, it can leave a mark.
Yeah.
It can literally mark a kid for life. So when you employ a cigarette against a child, you are, whether or not it's like putting out a cigarette on a kid or throwing it out the window at someone, you are in the small group of really scummy people on this earth.
Right. Well, this lady is really even more scummy, because we'll fast forward to now. This is all over the news. I want everyone to be clear. This was on the news. The part about the child was conveniently left out of the mainstream media. Okay, that the cigarette was thrown at her. If you're a mom, let me tell you something. I'm catching a case real quick if you throw a cigarette at my kid. I have no problem, and I will go to their corrupt courts, and I will happily go into their corrupt courts that have no authority over us and say, yes, I beat the shit out of someone because they threw a cigarette at me. Okay, so Shirley's my hero because she didn't do that. So Shirley makes a comment to this woman because they're neighbors, right? They live next door to each other. And so she made this comment, "You threw a cigarette at my child." Well, this woman, Margot, goes to Shirley and takes her and pushes her back, chokes her, which again, I went through a divorce through a covert narcissist. And one of the things about choking is you have severe mental issues when you go to choke someone. She didn't hit her. She grabbed her by the throat. And we're going to show you all this video. Grabbed her by the throat and pushed her back.
So that's the second assault technique that is very like commonly used by very abusive people.
Correct.
cigarettes and going for the neck.
Right. Now, I work with abused women, abused children, some men, but usually we have men work with the men, but I work with abused women. When you go into a state of trauma, which first of all, your kid's assaulted, okay? Then you're assaulted. You're in a trauma state immediately once someone has laid their hands on you. What you do next is not, you are not thinking at all of what you do next, because you're like, oh my gosh, I need to protect myself, because now in your head there's danger, right? You're like danger, fight or flight. So what happened is Shirley walks into her home. She grabs the keys to her truck, goes into her truck, opens the truck, and pulls her gun. Now let's just stop here, because here in Texas, and I'll let Max get, because he knows a little bit more about that. In Texas, you're allowed to pull your gun on your property. She didn't leave her property. She pulled her gun and told her, I believe it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Max, if you touch me again, I'll shoot you. Which again, she's not re-engaging. To her, she's like, I need my gun because I just was assaulted and my child was assaulted. Now there's harm that's here.
Can we mention the other part? Can we mention the other part, that her husband wasn't home?
Yeah, so correct. Her husband leaves, and I'm not going to say what he does for a living, just out of protection for them. But
he just wasn't there. So she's all alone dealing with this attack on her daughter and an attack on her. Her husband's not there to protect her.
Right.
Another part, but I don't want to keep interrupting, but I was watching the video and we should show the video. I was watching the video to prepare for this, and during the actual assault, before she went in to get her keys, she tried to open the car door. So correct. She made a decision to get a gun very early after this attack, after this altercation started.
Let's show the video of child one.
Yes.
And then let's talk about that. And then we'll go into her pulling her gun and that, because I really want to emphasize, guys, this is a child, right? This all stemmed from the child getting harmed. And the news had said it was about a bed frame. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the child getting assaulted. So go ahead and show it, and then we'll talk about it.
So this is a video from one of the houses near Shirley's house, because it was around the corner, where they happen to have a Ring camera pointed at the street that caught this. And you're gonna have to listen. I tried to bring the audio volume up. You're gonna listen as this car drives by, and the woman, Margot, allegedly Margot, shouts out, "How do you like that cigarette?" Here it is. Here comes the car.
Hope you like that cigarette.
That cigarette.
Can you play it again? Just just so people can really hear it. Like, listen again.
And that is Shirley's
this is the child walking right there. Shirley's daughter.
Here it comes again. Hope you liked that cigarette.
Hope you like that cigarette. Throwing it at a minor child, a grown woman. Mark was a grown woman. You've now thrown a cigarette at a child who is not by her home. Okay, she's now by herself. Now the child is like, she can't turn around and go home because this woman just assaulted her.
Lives right next door. She's pulling right into the driveway.
Yeah. So, and because they're neighbors, now this child is in also a fight or flight state. Doesn't know what to do. Where does she go? You know what I mean? The neighbors that she knows is like, does she go run down a couple of blocks? Does she go back? Like, again, the news refused to cover it because of the mainstream media. They refused to cover that this woman threw the cigarette at her saying, Hope, I'd like your cigarette. Please tell me what grown adult does that to a child.
And notice that she does run. If you look in this corner, she runs off screen.
She starts running.
Yeah.
Because she's afraid. She's afraid that now this car can turn around. Listen, this woman threw a cigarette at her. You throw a cigarette at a child, who knows what you're going to do next, like what you're going to do next. You know what I mean? And I don't know, because I can't tell, Max, maybe you know, but who's driving that car? Because obviously the woman was in the passenger. So you have someone driving this car that is witness to you throwing this cigarette. the neighbor has a camera that has
Yeah.
caught it on there, and this child is now running in fear for her life. Are you kidding me? And then the news, no mention of it whatsoever. None. Like, I
No
really
mention.
want to like emphasize that. Not no mention of it.
No mention of it at all. And
Yeah.
it's terrifying because I mean, you have kids, I have kids. If I don't think you'd be able to, I don't. I imagine I would probably just be seeing red if this happened to my child.
Correct.
And
And that's
I
the
don't know
thing.
I don't know what I would do. Like I as we show the video of what happened with Shirley, the more I think about it, the more proud I am of her that she didn't pull the trigger, if that makes sense. Because I don't know if I would be able to resist. You throw something at, you throw a cigarette at my child, you hit me in the throat on my own property. I don't know if I would I mean, I hope I would be able to. The other side of this is, strangely, the legal issue might have been a little bit easier on her if she had used deadly force. You never want to shoot someone, but
Right.
it becomes a lot easier. I mean, like, the other side of the argument is, oh, well, you felt your life was threatened, but you didn't use force. Did you really think you were threatened? You know what I mean? Like, that's an argument that they can make. I have a ton of respect that she didn't take a step that, as you see what happens, a lot of us would realize would be very reasonable.
Well, before you play that, I want to say, when you guys watch this video, she doesn't even assault the woman, but she doesn't do anything. She goes to get protection. Like, if someone chokes me out like that, I'm like, one, I'm with you. I give her props because I probably would have pounded the SHIT out of them because they hurt my kid. And now you're assaulting me. I don't know if I could have the restraint that Shirley plays here in this scenario. So I'll let you play it.
So he'll play it. This is from Shirley's camera, which, if anything, no sponsors, but this is probably a great infomercial for why everyone should have a camera at their house, because you never know when you might need something like this. Here's the video from Shirley's driveway. Remember, her own driveway.
She what? You throwing a stick at my daughter? That's not my property. Get my crap. No, come on. Call him. Don't come up to me.
Just a vile woman.
Yeah. She's demonic.
You better get or what? Touch me again, I'll shoot you. I'll shoot you. I'll shoot you. You should shoot every weapon. You put your hands on me first. It's in my property. It's on my property. You're gonna touch him.
Now, here, guys, I want to explain here. First of all, this woman's still on Shirley's property, so there's a valid threat here. Now the child's walked up, that she's assaulted, that's standing right there. Another threat who feels like she has to protect her mom because she loves her mom, right? So, and Shirley pulls her gun and said, if you touch me again, I'll shoot you. She doesn't say, let's fight, let's whatever. This was a protection for her to not go into any kind of physical altercation at all. So again, I mean, it go ahead, you comment, Matt, because it pisses me off to no end.
Yeah. And so, a couple things here. So when it comes to self-defense law, you are allowed to defend yourself if you're attacked, as long as you aren't the aggressor. You can't have started the fight. So you can use deadly force to defend yourself against an imminent threat against your life or your body which, by the way, hitting her in the throat absolutely is. That is
And
absolutely.
didn't hit her. She choked her and pushed her back.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. Just to put it up there, neck trauma is potentially a fatal blow. And just to show it, there was a few years ago in 2015, there was a really crazy case where there was a soccer referee trying to give someone a red card, another player, and the player punched the soccer referee in the throat, and the referee died 2 days later. So having someone punch you or hit you in the throat is a potentially fatal hit attack, and fearing that this person is going to do it again is very reasonable, because as we see on this video, the assailant doesn't leave. Margot doesn't leave the property. There are numerous times where she takes steps, like right here, she takes a step back towards in the direction. She's not leaving. She's taunting Shirley the whole time.
And Shirley's backing up, right? Shirley's backing up onto her property. This woman is continuing to come towards Shirley. Like Margot is continuing to walk towards her. And if you see on the video too, after she's assaulted, listen, those bed frames can be just as much as a weapon as a gun. Her and a man behind her are throwing those bed frames around like it's not like they're throwing them around. Easily could throw those at Shirley, and Shirley doesn't have her weapon right here, and they're throwing those bed frames around. Yeah.
So in this moment, Shirley has already attempted to get into the truck. Truck's locked. She's just been assaulted on her own driveway by a neighbor who has just thrown a lit cigarette at her child.
Right.
Like, we don't know if that happened, but we have video of someone driving past the child shouting out the window, "How you like that cigarette?" This obviously rings true. And if someone comes up to you and says, "Why did you throw a cigarette at my daughter?" Right? And your first instinct is to punch them in the throat, it sounds like you threw a cigarette at her daughter.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't, the answer is, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? I mean, like let's just follow logically. So Shirley gets punched in the throat, a potentially fatal attack, and she cannot get into the truck where the gun is. Now, I've talked to Shirley, and she said that the nearest gun that she had available to her that she could think of in the moment was in that truck. It's important, because the only way that the prosecutors could ever go after her is to argue that when she left, the attack was over. And when she came back, she had started a new altercation.
Which she did not.
Which she didn't do,
and
because
this lady didn't leave her property. She assaulted her, started throwing bed frames around, which again can be a weapon, kept antagonizing her. And remember, okay, the child had been assaulted. The child went running because the child was afraid. Now the child has now turned around and where she was walking came back around to where the street is to go. And it is, again, both child and mom, right? Child and Shirley, which is mom, are traumatized at this point because this woman has assaulted a minor child and Shirley. And I want to make it clear too, the news does not talk about the child. They bring up that it was about the bed frames. It had nothing to do with the bed frames. As you can see at the beginning of this video, Shirley says, did you throw a cigarette at my daughter? And then the woman turns around and assaults her.
Yeah. And here's KSAT, which is San Antonio News. They say it's a dispute over bulk trash pickup. That's the subtitle.
And I want to make it clear too. You only see two people in those videos. There was like what, 5 or 6 other people in that where Shirley was. So not only did Shirley get assaulted, you think there's all these other people around with Margot and her family. Am I about to get jumped? Is my child about to get jumped? You know, again, as you guys saw, there was a man there. He's throwing that bed frame around too. So there's a lot of scenarios for Shirley, the victim, because I want to be very clear. Margot is no victim. Shirley is the victim, and child 1 is the victim, not Margot. And so UCA KSAT News, Margot was arrested this night. The person that assaulted her was arrested. when she was arrested, she went to court, got charged. Well, Delgado Vasquez, okay, this got I don't know if you saw that message, Max, but Delgado Vasquez is a district attorney, right? That
Joe.
I don't know if he was the one that was charging.
Was that Joe Gonzalez?
Look at your
different one. Okay.
Yeah, look at your Joe Gonzalez. We're going to talk about him in a second.
He's the other one. Okay.
Yeah. Margot got charged. Well, they ended up dismissing Margot's charges, and Delgado Vasquez is now coming for Shirley and wants to charge her with felony gun charges. So let's just break this down, guys. Margot assaulted a minor child. Margot assaulted Shirley. Margot on camera. All of it's on camera. You can't deny that Shirley was assaulted. You can't deny that there were other people there because you see another man in the video. Listen, I'm gonna say the bed frame is a weapon. They grabbed a weapon first because a metal bed frame that they can pick up can throw at someone, can do a lot of harm, and they're throwing it around and screaming. So, you see the guy. So again, this woman who did all of this stuff, and guess what? The police didn't even care that the minor was assaulted. Yeah. And this guy's is in Bexar County, Texas, which is Bexar. People might think it's Bexar, but it's Bexar County. And this Delgado Vasquez is wanting to charge Shirley with felony gun charges. That's like crazy to me.
So
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
There's two specific charges. So what they want to go after her for is assault because she pointed a gun and she made threats, according to them. And they want aggravated assault because it involved a deadly weapon. So this is a felony.
Though she was assaulted.
This is a felony, 2 to 20 years in prison. It's insane. It's insane because the law is on her side.
Yeah.
She's been assaulted on her driveway. She's been punched in the neck. Her daughter has just been attacked for no reason on the street by a woman throwing a lit cigarette at her. And now, so the way the law all breaks down is it's all based on what would a reasonable person do? What would be reasonable in this situation? And it's unfortunately, if a prosecutor decides to go after her, it's up to a jury of her peers to decide whether it's reasonable for her to do all of these things in response to being attacked. And that's the basic concept of self-defense under Texas law. So when you talk about the bed frame, I'll turn up the volume again and I'll just talk over it so people can listen to it. Realize that as Shirley is walking inside to get the keys, which she needs to get the nearest gun to her, right? She's home. Her husband's not there. Her daughter, she doesn't know where her daughter is. She's just been attacked by a woman. There's another person there. She doesn't know if multiple people are going to attack her. It's perfectly reasonable in that moment for her to want a firearm to defend herself. The nearest firearm that she can think of or that she knows of is in the car, right? She has to go inside to get the keys to get the gun out of the car. And realize as she's doing this is what she's hearing. She's hearing large pieces of metal clinking around. So she doesn't know what's exactly happening. She's hearing her neighbor throwing large, clunky pieces of metal all over her property. That would be terrifying. Correct. And in that moment, you have to put yourself in her shoes. She probably had tunnel vision. I've just been assaulted. My daughter's been assaulted. I need to get a firearm to defend myself. And as she's hyper-focused on finding the way to get her own gun to defend herself, she's hearing these metal pieces flying around, clanking on the concrete. She doesn't know what this woman's doing, right? And then she finally gets the gun and sees that the woman hasn't left. She's still standing there on the property line, taunting her. And by the way, can we just briefly say, you have to be a psychopath to see someone point a gun at you and your response be, shoot me, bitch. Like, do you know how crazy you have to be to have a loaded gun pointed at you and to say, shoot me, bitch?
Right. Like, do you have a death wish?
This is crazy.
That's the thing. It's like you have to have a death wish to say, "Hey, shoot me," and like, why? Like, what? So did Margot want all the other people that she had there with them too to be shot too? Because again, you're telling Shirley to shoot you. There's some guy over here, whoever it is, your husband, whoever it might be, throwing things, and then which we don't see is the other people that are there. So you are literally, Margot has not only assaulted a child, assaulted Shirley, she has put every single person there in danger because she's saying, shoot me. So you want gunfire to just go off in a neighborhood and just be like, it's
Yeah.
just crazy. Now,
I'm not off base, right? Like you have to be a certified lunatic to have a loaded handgun pointed at you, and your first response is go ahead, shoot me. Like,
I don't even know if, listen, I think that's offensive to lunatics because I don't even know. She's crazier than a lunatic.
No, you have to have a death wish.
But she is a psychopath because someone that assaults a child and chokes someone out, there is a mental disorder.
Yeah.
There has to be there. There's some mental disorder, and you have a death wish. You're telling someone to shoot you. You have a suicide wish, and Shirley would have been in her right to shoot her. And you know what? The fact that she held restraint shows the character for Shirley than it does for Margot. Now, let the trolls, what about to say? Let the trolls come out because they're going to say it. And, because there's two white people doing this. Like, Margot is a Hispanic woman. Shirley is a white woman. It is to me, this is a racially hate crime towards a white person. And I am not saying that there aren't other racial motivated crimes and whatever, but the police that have now, what people don't know is Margot has continued to call the cops on Shirley for every little thing. So now Shirley doesn't know if they're going to come and arrest her because they threatened her with felony charges. She's calling the cops, which is a form of abuse and false reporting is what Margot is doing. And it's always a Hispanic cop that shows up. I don't know if always I have to look at, but I think the majority of the time it's the same Hispanic cop. And they always take Margot's side on and tell Shirley, oh, well, why don't you do this? Well, why don't you do this? But Shirley's the white person. So it's no wonder that they dismiss the charges. Like at this point, if you're white, no matter what you do, they're going to charge you. But if you're any other race, they're going to be like, oh, okay, whatever. This is a racially motivated for Bexar County to go after the white woman that pulled her gun on the Mexican woman. And that's what the news tried to make it out like Shirley was crazy for pulling her gun. They didn't tell the full story. Frankly, Shirley has a case to sue the news because they falsely reported what truly happened. They didn't report on child one. They didn't report like all the other stuff. They edited it to their narrative like the mainstream media does. And so absolutely, I think that this was, people can hate me for that, but I don't think that they would ever say to Shirley, oh, we're going to charge you with felony gun charges if she wasn't white.
Well, this all went down at a time, we've talked about this, but I'm sure people in the audience remember, when this went down last year, there were a couple news stories that hit back to back to back in the news of people shooting their neighbors because they didn't know who they were. So like there were stories of like an African-American kid shows up at a house, he knocks on the wrong door, and the scared elderly white man shoots through the door because he thinks he's getting robbed. There were cases of this around the country that happened over and over and over again. It was like 2 or 3 in quick succession. So I'm not surprised that the prosecutor wants to make a case out of this, because when this happened, there were high-profile incidents of neighbors pointing guns or shooting neighbors. And I'm sure there's someone in the prosecutor's office is like, oh, no, not in my city, right? But the minute you get and look into this, you know that this isn't one of those cases. This isn't this is an example of someone recklessly handling a firearm. This is someone using a threat, a conditional threat, which is very important. Because she didn't say, I'm going to kill you. She said, I'm going to shoot you. She said, if you continue to go down this path, continue to step onto my property, continue to assault me, you will be met with deadly force. And there's a statute in Texas. Texas has the best laws that protects her in this circumstance. It's Texas Penal Code 941, protection of one's own property. So anyone who's ever taken a concealed carry class in Texas, one of the things that they teach you is that when it's dark out, especially, all rules kind of go out the window. When it's light out and the sun's up, you have an expectation that you have to really investigate what's going on your property. So you can't, if you see someone rustling through your trash can, you can't just shoot them in the daytime. At night, the law treats it differently because the law presumes that because it's dark out, it's harder for you to get all of the facts, and therefore it's reasonable for you as a homeowner to assume the worst rather than go out and investigate and get killed yourself. So one of the statutes that comes into play here is Texas Penal Code section 941, which says a person in lawful possession of land or tangible, movable property is justified in using force against another when and to the degree the actor reasonably believes the force is immediately necessary to prevent or terminate the other's trespass on the land or unlawful interference with the property. So taking the assault out of it, right? She has every right to threaten force to deter an angry, violent neighbor from trespassing on her land. Even if there wasn't an assault, the law allows her to deploy a threat of force to prevent a trespass. Right. That's why this case shouldn't be before a grand jury. It's so cut and dry.
But that's where they'll get a grand jury that hates guns and everything else, and then that's why they're trying to go after her. But then this is another form of abuse because she has to wait 3 years to see if they'll charge her or not. That's what the district attorney said to her. We have 3 years to charge you for this case. So now you're afraid. She's afraid to carry her gun, which now she has this woman who's calling the police on her all the time. It's her neighbor. It's not like, it's so easy to just sell a home and get away from it. She's lived in this home for a long time. So now it's like she's scared to do anything to protect herself. And guess what? We all know that Margot is a psychopath because she's assaulted her once and assaulted her daughter, and she got away with it. Don't you think she's going to go and assault her again?
Yeah. The crazy part is the next part of the statute is section 942, which talks about deadly force to protect property. And this is what I was just talking about because it says here during the nighttime. So if someone would be justified in using the threat of force to stop trespass under the statute I just read, section 941, they can use deadly force to prevent the other's imminent commission of arson, burglary, robbery, aggravated robbery, theft during the nighttime, or criminal mischief during the nighttime. So if it's dark out and you're allowed to threaten force to stop them from trespassing on your property, you're allowed to use deadly force to stop them from committing criminal mischief on your property, which there is an argument to be made. Throwing around your bed frame all around your property might rise to the level of criminal mischief. And John in the comments on Facebook says you can't shoot them in the back. Interestingly, this law says you can. You can also use deadly force to prevent the other who is fleeing immediately after committing burglary, robbery, aggravated robbery, theft during the nighttime from escaping the property. So this law is so on the side of the homeowner that if someone trespasses on their property at night and commits these crimes, the homeowner can even shoot them to stop them from getting away. So, I'm not saying you should do that, right? But that's how, lopsided this is for the homeowner. And John's saying, well played. I didn't want to put you on blast. You saw that and I wanted to make sure I brought it up.
John's a longtime follower. He gets in trouble
I appreciate the comment.
All the time, Mr. John.
I appreciate the comment because when I read this, I was stunned because everyone's told you can't shoot them in the back. But the Texas law says in the nighttime when these crimes have been committed, you actually are. You shouldn't. Right. Not good. Anytime you can leave an altercation without killing someone is a great day, right?
But that's
the law allows it.
That's what's so funny is the law allows her to shoot them, but she didn't. So now they're gonna go after her for felony charges. Like it's just crazy to me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I just the whole thing is crazy. And the county that's coming after, it's so funny because obviously we've had a lot of these conversations is I don't believe the courts have authority over us. They don't even go by their own statutes and codes or their penal codes. This is their penal code, and they're not even like it's a rogue government at this point because they're not even going by their own like penal codes, which protects Shirley in this instance, right? And here's the other thing: is Margot was charged with a misdemeanor assault, wasn't charged with assaulting the minor, wasn't charged with criminal mischief, and now they're going after Shirley. Well, we don't know; they haven't charged her yet, but they told her that they have 3 years.
They have the police recommended charges. So the police have recommended aggravated assault, which is a class 2, I believe it's a class 2 felony, which would be up to 2 to 20 years in prison.
Which is crazy. Ruined her life after she was assaulted and her child was assaulted. Now I want to talk about this county that they're in, Bexar County. Joe Gonzalez is the main district attorney there. And listen, these are facts.
I have his picture. Hold on.
Okay. Joe Gonzalez. Yeah, here he is. Joe Gonzalez was a criminal defense attorney, okay, prior to being the district attorney. He had represented certain criminal defendants that were under the Bexar County once he became district attorney. He did not take those cases and give them and bring in a special prosecutor, which is what they're supposed to do in their penals and codes. He kept those cases for over a year. There were multiple cases that he kept for over a year. Multiple people are challenging the jurisdiction of this court and saying, that even in the appellate court, this has gone up to the appellate court, where now it's going to go to the Supreme Court, saying he continued to let these charges go as he's the main district attorney, when as soon as he got in there, he should have said, I was the criminal attorney for these defendants. Now we have to bring in a special prosecutor and bring in a different. He didn't do that. So this county and this Joe Gonzalez is one of the most corrupt counties I've seen in a long time. And I deal with a lot of
Bexar County is terrible.
It's horrible. And again, what's so funny is Joe Gonzalez is a Mexican guy and Margot's a Mexican woman and Shirley again is the white person. And so of course they're going to come after Shirley. Do you know, like, I want to talk about the trauma for a second, because I really want people to understand when women or children, because a woman and this child went through trauma, it takes a lot to come out of that. And when you're continued to be harassed through the police department, through your neighbor, you cannot heal from that trauma. You're reliving that trauma over and over and over again. You're in a state of trauma, which messes with your mental health. It messes with your physical health. It messes with a child's physical and mental health. And so what's happening with Shirley right now is beyond unjust, because she can't heal from the things that is happening to her, because they're saying they're going to come after her for gun charges. And I do want to say, supposedly they dismissed the case, and it was correct me if I'm wrong, it was a retired judge, or it wasn't a criminal judge, who dismissed the case and said, we're going to dismiss it because Shirley didn't show up to testify, but the child did, and other people that were, a party to it did. But Shirley was advised to not show up because
that's the crazy part of all this. That's the crazy part of all this.
Right. They wanted to get her on a stand so she could incriminate herself, which again, she's in a state of trauma. So she didn't show up. So they dismissed the case because Shirley wouldn't testify. Yet you have on video an assigned affidavit that says, because she did a police report, this is what happened. This is me. This is my child. And so then they dismissed the charges, and supposedly it's in an appeal process. But we all know that Margot is going to get off scot-free here. And Shirley is going to have to live in 3 years of fear, because this is what they've made her. This is what they've done to her. And again, Margot is continuing to call the police on every little thing in regards to Shirley. I mean, do you have some examples? I can't remember.
Parking enforcement. The trash can, when she put it at the street, the trash truck picked it up and put it down a little bit too close to me. Bulk trash pickup has touched my blade of grass. like, oh, your car is a centimeter too far away from the curb, like these nonsense stuff. And
Yeah.
it's she's been ordered by the court not to have any contact with Shirley, and she's proceeded to skirt the line of that restriction by using not
Police.
lawfare, but using 911 to do what the court says she can't individually, personally, directly do.
It's a form of harassment. I can't
Yeah.
remember because it's under narcissist. It's a way that they use the courts and the police to continue to harass you, to have
Yeah.
you in this state of fear, which is, crazy. And, Margot lives next there. She plays loud music till 10 o'clock at
Yeah.
night. Then she calls the police. There was also, and I'm not going to give this guy any credence. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't think that he deserves followers. He's a piece of shit. But it's a YouTuber who trolls police officers and has gone to Shirley's house, or actually Margot's house, and the guy hates police officers. That's
Yeah.
the whole the precipice of his YouTube is to basically get the police doing crazy things, and says he's pro-gun, yet he's going to now harassing Shirley for his YouTube, now saying that Shirley's the wrong one because Shirley didn't have a conversation with him, didn't want to talk to him. Margot is continuing to have people harass her, multiple people at her house all the time. And again, if Shirley's husband isn't home, if child one is coming home, like there is a credible threat here.
Yeah.
And this is how people get killed, because people are not seeing that Margot is the credible threat and Shirley is the one, she's a victim, and so is her daughter.
You mentioned before, I want to briefly bring it up, that the trauma is not easy to get over.
Yeah.
I have encouraged Shirley to file a civil case against Margot.
Yes.
For like intentional infliction of emotional distress, for the damages caused emotionally and physically by the attack. She's not sure if she wants to go down that path, and that's fair. But
Yeah.
just simply making the decision that I need to point a gun at another human being is not something that's easy to do.
Yeah.
Like we all, if you have training, you say, this is how I'm trained to do it, right? I've had to do that twice in my life. Once I was driving home from graduate school really late at night, pulled into a gas station, and there was I assume he was a crackhead. He was a tweaker. He was on something. He came out of the shadows and started like very aggressively asking me for money, like imploring me to give him money. Had to draw my gun. Thank God I had one on me. Second time driving through a downtown Denver area, had a Trump flag on the back of my Jeep, and a bunch of kids started getting up on my Jeep, banging on the window, anti-Trump stuff. So I had to pull my gun. Just said, hey, I didn't have to point it, but I said, hey, maybe you should leave.
Yeah.
Both of those situations, I walk out of those situations, and I'm not like crying or anything, but you go into almost shock. That you're stunned that something as simple as getting gas or stopping at a red light just escalated to the point where you might have to take someone else's life. And it's not easy to get over. And to have to live next to that person every day and have that person call the cops on you for everything under the sun, right?
Right.
And to know that your husband might not always be home, and that person might just be waiting for you to turn your back when you're walking down the driveway. It's a terrifying way to live. And then to have the district attorney completely ignoring the law, ignoring the Second Amendment, ignoring all these basic concepts of self-defense to choose to go after you instead, it's shameful. It's shameful. Yeah. We deserve better. We deserve, and he's an elected official. This isn't someone who's a careerist.
Well,
he's elected.
Selected.
Sure.
We'll do another show
sure.
on that.
But even with the selections, if enough people are riled up, we saw it in 2016, it's possible to have such significant turnout that you beat the program, right? That you beat the rigged election. You can beat it. You can turn out. So like if people see this in Bexar County and see how terrible this is, you can turn out the people. Now, the problem is everyone's going about their daily life and they're not really paying attention to this. And the media is doing the best that they can to say that this is about trash pickup instead of an assault on a child and a wife, a woman.
Right.
But we have to see these cases and we have to make them personal. And if you're walking into that ballot box, into that voting booth, don't just vote yes for everyone. Say, like, oh, do you want to retain this judge? Do you want to retain this district attorney? If you're going to go into that ballot box, do that research, because so many people like him get elected by people who just don't care and they just check every Democrat box or every Republican box.
I think at this point, people really need to start paying attention to what they're doing with our guns, because the responsible gun owners are the ones that are getting targeted. And that's because of Strong America. That we're the biggest armed resistance in the world. And so once you start charging people like Shirley, who is the victim, that's where people need to start getting involved and start being like, hey, this is going to affect all of us in the long run. They're going to push us to the brink of civil war if they're going to start coming for our guns. And what you said, that you said it best. It is such a terrifying way to live, and no one's protecting one other than Shirley and their family. But I'm talking outside of Shirley and her family and the people that love her. No one's protecting her or this minor child. They have villainized her through the lamestream media, through the courts, and it's really such a shame. And Margot, if you're watching this, you're a piece of shit, and I dare you to fucking take me to court, because I think you're a psychopath, and I would love to go to head with you, because I'll take all your shit and give it to Shirley. So sorry, but when I love people and care about them,
No, listen, I still contend anyone who starts a fight and then sees their victim point a loaded gun at them, if their response is, go ahead and shoot me, bitch, that's a psychopath. That's a crazy person.
She is psycho.
Like, I can't even fathom that. I would be hitting the deck. I would be running away if I didn't have a gun on me. The last thing I would do would be like inching closer to the gun and say, go ahead, do it. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, and what kind of, like, we'll touch this because I know we're getting here to an hour, but what kind of person, like, what else is she doing to children? Because for someone that protects children, what else is she doing? Because you threw a cigarette at this child. So are you harming other children? Or what are you doing? Because if you can so nonchalantly throw a cigarette at a minor child and say, hope you enjoy that cigarette, what else are you doing with the children that are around, that are in that neighborhood? Like, if anyone's in that neighborhood, make sure you keep your kids away from her, because she is a psychopath, and you don't know if she can do that to this child and then go assault the mom after. Like, she's on a whole nother level of crazy train.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Throw the cigarette, choke the neck. She briefly engaged in like gaslighting. Like at the end, she's like, oh, she pointed a gun at me. Like after she just said, shoot me, bitch. She's like, oh, pearl clutching, right? These are all textbook abuser. Like this is the abuser playbook. And I don't know what else she's got going on, but it is a travesty. It is an absolute travesty of justice that the charges against her, clear as day, caught on video. We just played it. The assault charges were dropped because Shirley didn't want to go in and potentially incriminate herself. Like it's one thing to say you have to testify. It's another thing to say you have to testify, but also, by the way, we're presenting this to a grand jury to potentially prosecute you, right? So that's the whole problem. She's not just the victim. She's a potential defendant. So she can't go up there. Shirley can't go up there and just say whatever happened, because she has to worry about this specter hanging over her of prosecution for defending herself. Right. I think she got some bad advice from the lawyer. I tried to coach her on, like, go there, say everything that happened until you went for the gun. Because everything with the gun has nothing to do with your neighbor's charge. Don't say anything. Don't accidentally incriminate yourself, but do say she hit me in the neck and it hurt.
But the hard part though is I always say, being a voice for the voiceless. They basically stole Shirley's voice. As a victim, she should have been able to go and testify and say, this happened to me and this happened to my child. And they stole that from her. That's another form of trauma, because you're silencing the victim now. And so that's a huge thing too, because yeah, she can go, but then again, Shirley is still in a state of trauma. So her going to the court,
Yeah.
she's thinking, can I even not say anything? You want to defend yourself because she didn't do anything wrong. And so, again, they've stolen. These are what criminals do. To me, Margot's a criminal. You are like the worst of the worst, because now you've gotten the police force, the district attorney, all of these people on your side, and now you've stolen the victim's voice. That is right there just evil.
Yeah.
It's demonic, it's evil.
And in a
it's
perfect
horrible.
world, the prosecutors are supposed to give voice to the voiceless.
Yes.
Right?
But
I
they
mean,
don't.
like,
Yeah.
can you imagine a judge tossing out a murder case because the murder victim can't testify? No, there are cases all the time where victims
So
can't testify
remember
or
the
won't
case
testify.
with Lee Keltner in Colorado? He did get murdered. He got murdered, shot in the head, and because he pulled his
terrible.
mace, they dismissed the charges, and a murderer got off. That's what I'm saying. These district attorneys are literally on the side of the people, because they're building their war of evil people to come after this. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother. That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other thing. But
Yeah.
it's really shameful how this all went down, and I pray and I hope that this can all get put behind her. Like, even if the prosecutors think that Shirley did something wrong, she doesn't have a criminal record. She's obviously not a threat to society. They could very easily say, okay, take a gun safety class and we'll drop all charges and we'll sign a little promise that we'll never prosecute you. Just so like, take a 30-minute NRA class and put it behind you. Even if you know what you did was completely right, stop having to worry about legal payments. Take the 30-minute class. They're pretty much free, and just put it behind it. But they're not even offering her that. They're holding this specter over her head. It's just another thing that she has to worry about. It's just shameful. The law and the Constitution are there to protect people in moments like this, and it's really disgusting to see an elected official violate those basic concepts of self-defense. It's a shame.
It is really sad. It's sad for Shirley. It's sad for her family, because they do have to have a criminal attorney on retainer, because they don't know. So that's money that you have held up with a criminal attorney until something happens. So you have, and criminal attorneys aren't cheap. So you have that literally there for the next 3 years, or until they say, oh, we're not going to charge you. But they like having that power over her. And what's crazy is now the person that's the assailant has power over the victim. I mean, it's so disgusting. And I'm proud of Shirley for not shooting her gun, because she would have had every right. And the fact that her child got assaulted, that right there, she should be an example for every gun owner. She wanted to protect herself. If Margot would have charged her, I'm sure she would have shot her gun. But how many people were around at this point? You know what I mean? So
now it's sad, and I said it earlier, the really crazy part of this is there's an argument to be made that this is a lot cleaner legally if she had actually used force.
It's crazy.
And it reminds me, like, there's this whole phenomenon in China. Have you ever seen these videos of like CCTV cameras in China? The way the law works in China, if you hit someone with your car and you injure them, you owe their family a ton of money, a ton, for basically stopping them from being a productive member of the workforce. If you hit them with your car and kill them, you owe them almost nothing. So there's all these videos coming out of China of people accidentally hitting pedestrians with their car, stopping, and then hitting in reverse and rolling over them 3 or 4 times to make sure that they're dead. Yeah, it's crazy. And you're like, well, that's crazy. But then you look at the law and you say, well, the law incentivizes it, right? It'd be so much it's so much cleaner for them. It's horrible, but you can understand why. It's not exactly the same here, but I look at it and I say the self-defense argument would have probably been a little cleaner if she had defend herself. Maybe not with a gun, maybe with a punch. I don't know. It's crazy that we even have to have this conversation.
Right.
Because
But
it's
you know,
so
even
cut
if
and
she
dry.
did hit her, because she is the white woman, they probably would have. It doesn't matter what Shirley would have done in this situation; they were going to come for her. You know what I mean? Because they know that she has guns and different things. They would have come for her, and it's crazy that we are having this conversation. And it's crazy to think, like, okay, if she would have shot her, it would have been better. Like, imagine the mental
Would have been
trauma
better.
of that. Of
It would have
killing
been better,
someone.
but it would have been a cut and dry self-defense argument. The idea of threatening deadly force but not using it, it's more complicated. But I don't think anyone should shoot anyone unless you absolutely have to. Absolutely have
I
to.
think all pedophiles should be shot in the balls.
We'll
Just,
just give them.
just
We could give them all Lupron, but apparently that's all earmarked for the children in these gender transition clinics.
Jesus.
You know Lupron. Lupron is what they use to chemically castrate sex offenders. And they don't have enough for the sex offenders because they're giving it to all the kids who think they're transgender.
That's child abuse right there.
It's terrible.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They're coming for our kids. It's like a kid gets assaulted. They're like, oh, okay, whatever. Let's charge the mom with felony assault because you know, she's white.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway. Well, we appreciate all of you.
Great conversation. I'm gonna have to have you on my show. I've been on your show so many times. But I do have a new show now with my old producer from Conservative Daily, Josh. So we're gonna have to have you on. I think the link's in the description. Our podcast is called Right Guys Podcast. We're on Rumble, YouTube, and all different audio podcasts. I like audio. A lot of people like audio. You can listen to it. So we try to make it a podcast that you can listen to or watch. But definitely check us out. And if you wanna see where my brain is at in all of this, I did write a book on gun control. It's really thick, which is why I get called on to talk about these issues. The Conservatives' Guide to Winning Every Gun Control Argument. Kind of a little pet project. I have a bunch of these, but I have a new one I'm working on for immigration. But I have one on abortion.
Do an abortion one too?
Abortion one's done. That's out. Gun control's out, and I have an immigration one, which is crazy. The more you read into immigration, the more crazy, the more
I don't need to read into it. You know how many times I've been at the border? It's
crazy. I know. But I was just reading a case on a MS-13 teenager who had clear gang tattoos. Biden not only let him out, but put him in a home where he said, "Oh, I'm going to go live with my cousin," but then he told other people it's my aunt, and he told it's my uncle. Very obviously not a family.
Yeah.
Within 3 months, this MS-13 gang member raped and murdered an autistic woman. No. And then the idiots in the Biden administration, HHS, put him in the foster care system with other kids.
See,
after he had been arrested. After he'd been arrested for murdering and raping or sexually assaulting an autistic woman, Biden puts him in a foster home with kids.
See, that's what I'm saying, is they are protecting the assailants all over the place. You know what I mean? And that's a regime. That's not an administration. He's a regime.
They
made me delete my Oh, I think they're on Rumble and they're making her delete gun comments. That's crazy.
I'm reading cases like this and it's making my blood boil because when you talk to liberals, they're like, "Oh, well, don't you know that illegal aliens are," well, they don't call them that, but illegal aliens are more law-abiding than the average American. I'm sorry. MS-13's motto is literally kill, rape, control. That's their motto. I'm sorry. You don't find American gangs with that motto. You don't see American gangs luring their enemies into municipal parks and beheading them and cutting out their heart and leaving it there for kids to find the next morning. You don't see that. And it's infuriating. It's pissing me off.
We're at war right now.
It's pissing me off.
People need to realize, listen, I've gotten so pissed. I'm like, the illegal aliens are colonizing in America. And they're setting them up.
You see that story?
Yes. And they're setting them up to go to war with us. Now, I've gone to the border a bunch of times. And I'm telling you right now, it is a problem. and there was a rape tree, right? It was on the border of Mexico and America. And the Border Patrol, I'm like, why aren't you guys doing anything? They're like, oh, well, we don't want to go to war with Mexico. So you're over there watching kids be raped and tortured, and you're not doing anything about it. I mean, at one point, a Border Patrol agent put a gun in my head. Well, you say it's crazy. I'm like, you better fucking shoot me, or I'm gonna go help this kid, because you're threatening me with a gun. Like, and again, it's crazy because we're talking about it, but there's a different scenario, because there's a kid over here being raped, and now you're trying to stop me from protecting that kid. There's a difference, right, than this crazy Margot person. But I'm like, why are you pulling your gun out on me to stop me from protecting this kid? Because you're probably getting a kickback financially. I'm telling you, America better really, really wake up, because what's happening right now at the border is crazy. In Mexico, they're setting up a lot of these people to go to war with us. So, maybe that's a topic we can talk about on your show.
Oh yeah, for sure. Were you the one who told me about Colony Ridge?
No.
This enclave? But before I leave, I just want to show it to you, because it's insane. There is an enclave that's been built north of Houston, and they've taken all this private land, and they've built these subdevelopments on this land, and they are selling the land to illegal aliens. And it's all about own a piece of American soil, no background checks, no citizen checks. Now it's kind of like a slumlord situation where they're expecting the illegals not to pay, so they get to repossess it. But this housing development, I think it's like 60 square miles. 60 square miles. I want to say 40 to 75,000 people, predominantly illegal aliens. The police won't go in there. Fire won't go in there. They are quite literally setting up a colony in Texas without utilities, like running water. It's they're stealing land.
That's what I'm saying. Don't you think, like, anyone in Mexico, like, I'm sorry, if you're in Texas or not in Texas and you've learned about the Alamo, Texas went to war with Mexico. Are people delusional to not realize that Mexico has a beef to pick with Texas, because Texas took a big part of the land because they went to battle for the Alamo? Now they're pissed and they're going to come and colonize here. And, I'm sorry, Abbott, he's a piece of crap, because him and DeSantis are taking these people and pushing them into other states. Guess what? Take those mother effers back to Mexico and drop them off. Say, get out of our country, not go put them in New York and California and everything else. Like, why are you bringing them into the country? You need to take them out of the country, not bring them in. It's like, oh, you handle it.
It is kind of there's a little. It's kind of comical. Like in Texas, I believe it was last weekend, 35,000 illegal aliens apprehended in Texas at the border in one weekend. New York has received 60,000, and New York is saying, we're tapped out, we're full. But Texas is expected to just take 9,000 a day and just say, thank you, can I have another? Meanwhile, New York gets one bus of 50 of them, and they bring in the National Guard. I mean, like, it's a little comical.
The National Guard won't come to the border and help when these kids and the cartel are trafficking them back and forth from Mexico to America. And in fact, Texas is giving all men, okay, not women or children, but all men, cell phones, plane tickets. Like, they're giving them stuff. But they're starving Americans. Like, we're about to go to war, and people are just like, oh, trust this plan. No, the plan is they're going to make us go to war or starve us. So we're desperate and want to go into their commie regime. But people better wake up. Like, not even wake up. People better, like, start doing things to stop what's happening, because it's out of control. And what they're doing to our kids, I mean, even talking about Child One, right? Like, they're harming our kids on such another level, and it's sad. It's crazy.
It is. It's
Candace is right. They are helping them set up all over the country to try and take it over. They're a huge part of it, highly involved.
I do think it is a little comical, though, that, like, sanctuary cities are like, all are welcome, and like 2 Greyhound buses arrive, and they're like, no, that's not what we meant. Like, how can you say all are welcome, and then the minute that 2 Greyhound buses full of illegals pull into Port Authority in New York City, they say, oh, no, state of emergency.
Like,
I don't think you meant it when you said all are welcome. I think you
Yeah.
were full of crap.
you're
That's
bullshit.
just me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, Max,
I'll have to have you on our show to talk about this because
Yeah,
it's blowing up.
let's definitely talk about it. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about this. And, Margot, if you're watching, you suck. And Shirley, we're really proud of you. We're really proud of you for just, standing up to the bully and standing up for your daughter. You don't feel like you've done anything wrong, and you're really loved by a lot of people. And so, we're proud of you, and we want you to know that.
The
So,
law is firmly on your side. It might
Yeah.
take a little bit of time for you to win that argument, but the law is firmly on your side. You
Yeah.
didn't do anything wrong. Don't listen to whatever the media paints you to be. The media, they're crap.
They're liars.
And you have lots of friends around you who will support you and are in your corner. And we know that you didn't do anything wrong. And we know that you're not the problem.
Yes, we all know that. Well, we love all of you tuning in, and we really appreciate it. And listen, please share this video because we want it to get out there. We want this story to be known. I mean, really, people need to know that a child was assaulted, and the cops in Bexar County didn't do anything about it like that. And a woman was assaulted, and they didn't do anything about it. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, so, all right. Love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.